Chapter 1. The Invitation. It was a cold autumn evening when the invitation arrived at Chloe's doorstep. The envelope was old and tattered, with edges that looked as though they'd been singed. Her name was scrawled in elegant, almost hypnotic handwriting, and inside was a single ticket, crimson with gold embellishments. "Dare to enter the midnight carnival," it read. Chloe felt a shiver crawl up her spine as she stared at the card. It seemed out of place, almost like it had been plucked from a different time, or a different world altogether. She couldn't recall entering any contest or being part of any raffles that might have earned her such a prize. But as she flipped the ticket over, she noticed an address. Black Hollow Road, 13 miles from the edge of town, where the forest meets the night. She had never heard of such a place. Curious, she searched the web, but there were no mentions of a carnival in town, let alone one called the Midnight Carnival. The whole thing seemed suspicious, but also strangely enticing. Chloe, being an adventurous soul, couldn't resist the allure. Her friends warned her to be careful, calling the whole thing creepy, but she brushed them off, chalking it up to Halloween pranksters or some sort of elaborate escape room experience. The next evening, Chloe set out in her car, the ticket clutched tightly in her hand. The directions were odd, leading her far from any familiar roads. The trees began to close in around her as she drove deeper into the woods, the sun sinking low on the horizon. Eventually, her headlights caught a glimpse of something in the distance, a flickering light, growing brighter as she approached. She stopped her car in front of an enormous iron gate, rusted and twisted, with the words "Midnight Carnival" barely visible under layers of grime. Beyond the gate, she could see faint lights glowing, casting long, eerie shadows across the carnival grounds. The air was thick with the scent of burnt sugar and something else, something metallic and unpleasant. With her heart pounding in her chest, Chloe pushed the gate open. It creaked and groaned, as if it hadn't been disturbed in decades. The moment she stepped through, the gate slammed shut behind her with a deafening clang. Chloe spun around, startled, but the gate was now securely locked, with no sign of how it had closed. She was trapped. Chapter 2. The Freak Show. The carnival was alive with lights and sounds, but it wasn't the joyful kind of place she remembered from childhood. The Ferris wheel turned slowly, its seats swaying in the wind, the lights flickering like dying stars. The carousel moved, but the music that accompanied it was warped, like a broken music box. The painted horses looked more like twisted, nightmarish creatures than the elegant steeds she remembered from the fairs. And then there were the clowns. They roamed the grounds in tattered, dirty costumes, their faces painted with garish colors, but their expressions were anything but cheerful. There was something wrong with their eyes, black and soulless, reflecting no light. Chloe's unease grew with every step, drawn in by a morbid curiosity. She wandered deeper into the carnival, her eyes darting to every shadow and darkened corner. Each booth she passed was more unsettling than the last. Fortune tellers with skeletal hands, games that seemed designed to lose, and mirrors that reflected images far more grotesque than the people standing in front of them. A banner flapping in the breeze caught her attention. "Freak Show, enter if you dare." Chloe hesitated. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back, to leave this place and never look back. But the eerie allure of the carnival pulled her forward. She stepped inside the tent, her breath catching in her throat. The tent was dark and smelled of decay. As her eyes adjusted, she saw the freaks on display. Twisted, malformed creatures that seemed more monster than human. A woman with a snake's body instead of legs hissed at her as she passed. A man with a second deformed face growing out of his neck moaned in agony. But what chilled her to the bone was the way they looked at her, their eyes pleading, as if they were trapped, suffering in silence, unable to escape their eternal torment. She turned to leave, but found her path blocked by one of the clowns. Up close, his makeup was cracked, and his skin underneath was grey, like the flesh of something long dead. His grin widened as he reached out a gloved hand, offering her a balloon. Chloe shook her head, backing away in terror, but the clown only laughed, a high-pitched, inhuman cackle that echoed throughout the tent. Chapter 3: The Ringmaster. Chloe bolted out of the tent, her heart pounding in her ears. The carnival seemed to close in around her, the pathways twisting and turning in directions that didn't make sense. No matter which way she ran, she found herself deeper within the labyrinthine grounds, further away from any hope of escape. She stumbled into the main tent, the big top, where the show was apparently just about to start. The seats were filled with shadowy figures, none of whom seemed quite human. She could feel their eyes on her, watching her every move. The lights dimmed, and a spotlight flickered on, illuminating the center of the ring. There stood the ringmaster, a tall, slender figure dressed in a tattered red coat and a top hat, his face obscured by a porcelain mask. He held a long whip in one hand and a crooked cane in the other. His presence was commanding, and Chloe felt an icy chill as his gaze fixed on her. "Welcome, welcome," the ringmaster's voice boomed, deep and resonant, though his lips never moved. "To the show that never ends, the Carnival of Nightmares. Tonight's star attraction is you." The crowd erupted in eerie applause, but their clapping was out of sync, too slow, too deliberate. Chloe tried to run, but the moment she turned, she saw the clowns, dozens of them, closing in, forming a tight circle around her. Their grins were wide, too wide, revealing rows of sharp, yellowed teeth. She was shoved toward the center of the ring, forced to face the ringmaster. He tilted his head, as if examining her, before he snapped his fingers. The lights above flickered, and the tent ceiling seemed to dissolve into darkness. Chloe looked up, only to see shapes moving in the shadows, creatures writhing and slithering just beyond the reach of the light. A low, rumbling growl echoed through the tent, and the floor beneath her feet began to tremble. The crowd, if it could be called that, began to chant in a language Chloe couldn't understand. The ringmaster raised his arms, and the creatures above descended, their red eyes glowing in the dark. Chloe was paralyzed with fear, unable to move, unable to scream. Chapter 4: The Hall of Mirrors. Just when she thought it was over, the floor beneath her gave way. She fell, plummeting into darkness before landing hard on a cold marble floor. Dazed, she looked around, realizing she was now in the Hall of Mirrors. The glass stretched endlessly in every direction, creating a maze of reflections that distorted and twisted her image. But as she stood trying to find her way out, she noticed that the reflections weren't right. They moved on their own, independent of her actions. One by one, the reflections began to change, her face growing pale, her eyes hollowing out, her mouth stretching into a scream that she couldn't hear. And then they began to step out of the mirrors. Her reflections became solid, each one more grotesque than the last, until they were fully formed monstrosities, all with her face. They advanced on her, hands outstretched, as if trying to pull her back into the mirrors with them. Chloe turned and ran, the sound of shattering glass following her as the reflections pursued her, their inhuman shrieks filling the hall. She raced through the maze, desperately searching for an exit, but the mirrors only reflected her terror back at her. Every turn brought her face to face with another version of herself, each more twisted, more horrifying. Just as one of the reflections grabbed her arm, she burst through an unseen door, tumbling into another room. Chapter 5. The Funhouse. Chloe found herself in the funhouse, but there was nothing fun about it. The walls were slanted, the floors uneven, and the colours garish and disorienting. The sounds of carnival music played in reverse, creating a sickening, unsettling melody. Distorted laughter echoed through the space, coming from nowhere and everywhere at once. She tried to steady herself, but the floor tilted, throwing her off balance. The walls seemed to close in, the rooms shrinking, stretching, twisting in impossible ways. Chloe stumbled through the funhouse, her vision swimming as the world around her became a nightmare. At every corner there were clowns, lurking in the shadows, peering through holes in the walls, their eyes gleaming with malice. They whispered her name, their voices soft and sinister, like a knife's edge. She could feel their breath on her neck, but every time she turned, they vanished into the darkness, only to reappear moments later, closer and more menacing. Her panic rose as she realized there was no way out. Every door she tried led her deeper into the twisted maze. The air grew thick with the stench of rot and decay, and the laughter grew louder, more manic, until it was all she could hear. Finally, she reached a dead end, a room filled with broken, grinning mannequins dressed in clown costumes. Their glassy eyes stared blankly ahead, but as Chloe backed away, she heard the sound of joints creaking. The mannequins began to move, their heads turning to follow her, their limbs jerking to life. They started to march toward her, their movements stiff and unnatural, but their intent clear. She screamed, bolting out of the room and into another corridor, the mannequin's footsteps echoing behind her. Chapter 6. The Clown Car. Chloe's frantic flight led her to what appeared to be a garage, filled with rusted, broken-down carnival rides. The air was thick with dust and the scent of motor oil. In the center of the room was a single, brightly colored car, a clown car. It was small, comically so, with peeling paint and a smiling face on the hood. But there was something wrong with it. The smile was too wide, the eyes too large. And as Chloe approached, she swore that she saw the car's headlights flicker, like eyes blinking. The door creaked open on its own, inviting her in, but she hesitated, the hairs on the back of her neck standing on end. The sound of footsteps, heavy, deliberate, echoed through the garage, drawing closer. Chloe turned and saw the clowns emerging from the shadows, their eyes gleaming, their grins wide. They were coming for her, and there was no other way out. With no other choice, she climbed into the car. The door slammed shut behind her, trapping her inside. The engine roared to life on its own. The car sped off, careening through the carnival grounds with reckless abandon. Chloe gripped the steering wheel, but it was useless. The car had a mind of its own. The clowns chased after her, their laughter filling the night air. The car swerved and spun, narrowly avoiding obstacles as it tore through the carnival, taking her on a twisted, nightmarish ride. The world outside the windows blurred, the colors smearing together into a nauseating kaleidoscope. Chloe could feel the car pulling her deeper into the carnival, deeper into the nightmare. The ride seemed endless, the clowns relentless in their pursuit. Just when she thought she couldn't take it anymore, the car screeched to a halt, throwing her forward. The door flew open, and Chloe tumbled out, landing hard on the ground. She found herself in the center of the carnival once more, at the foot of the Ferris wheel. The clowns circled around her, their grins wide, their eyes gleaming with malicious glee. The ringmaster stood before her, his porcelain mask reflecting the flickering lights of the carnival. "You're welcome to the final act," he intoned, his voice echoing in her mind. "You're the grand finale of our carnival of nightmares." Chloe struggled to her feet, but her body felt heavy, as if weighed down by an unseen force. The ringmaster raised his cane, and the Ferris wheel began to turn, creaking and groaning as it moved. But instead of seats, the wheel was lined with cages ayeur, cages that held the twisted, tormented souls of those who had come before her. She watched in horror as the cages descended, one by one, each one containing a person who had been lured into the carnival, just like her. Their faces were contorted in fear and agony, their eyes pleading for release. But there was no escaper, not for them, and not for her. The ringmaster approached, his cane tapping the ground with each step. "Euro. You see, dear Chloe, the carnival never truly ends. It lives on in the souls of those who dare to enter. And now you will join them." He reached out, and Chloe felt a cold, creeping sensation crawling up her legs, her arms, her neck. It was as if the very essence of the carnival was seeping into her, pulling her into its twisted, nightmarish world. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. Her vision blurred, the world around her darkening as she was consumed by the carnival. The last thing she saw was the ringmaster, his empty eyes staring into hers as the darkness swallowed her whole. The next morning, the sun rose over the forest, casting long shadows over the abandoned grounds of the midnight carnival. The gates were closed, the ride still, and the air was silent a year, except for the faint sound of carnival music, barely audible on the breeze. Inside the big top, the show was just beginning. The ringmaster stood in the center of the ring, his porcelain mask gleaming in the dim light. The crowd of shadowy figures watched in anticipation as the spotlight flickered on, illuminating a new attraction. In the center of the ring stood a new cage, its bars twisted and blackened as if by fire. And inside the cage was Chloe, her face pale, her eyes hollow, her body frozen in a perpetual state of terror. She was no longer human, but a part of the carnival, her soul trapped within its twisted confines for all eternity. The ringmaster turned to the crowd, his grin wide beneath the mask. "You're welcome, one and all, to the midnight carnival, where the show never ends and the nightmares never stop." The crowd erupted in applause, their clapping slow and deliberate, echoing through the tent like the beating of a distant drum. And as the music swelled, the ringmaster raised his cane, signaling the start of the next performance. Outside, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the carnival in shadows once more. The gates creaked open, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul to enter, to become part of the eternal show. And so the midnight carnival lived on, a place where nightmares were born and where they would never, ever die. Epilogue. The invitation returns. Weeks later, in a quiet neighborhood miles away, another invitation arrived. This time it was addressed to a young man named Ethan. He found the crimson ticket in his mailbox, with his name scrawled in that same elegant, hypnotic handwriting. "You dare to enter the midnight carnival," ere it read. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine as he stared at the card, but like Chloe, his curiosity got the better of him. He pocketed the ticket, thinking, here, TMDD, check it out, just for fun. After all, what could go wrong? And so the cycle continued. The midnight carnival never stopped, always waiting for the next guest, the next victim, to join its eternal performance. In the distance, the carnival lights flickered to life once more, the sound of twisted laughter echoing through the night. Welcome to the midnight carnival. The show is about to begin again. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the story and want more chills in your life, Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Tap the bell icon to make sure you never miss a new horror tale. Sweet dreams, if you can sleep.